Yeah, it's interesting. I get introduced with a lot of things, actually, in history. I don't know what you guys were doing 30 years ago, but, you know, often it comes before me. If you remember what you were doing 30 years ago, imagine being introduced with that as your primary story. I imagine you've moved on in 30 years. In fact, actually, looking around, I bet some of you weren't even born, which is really kind of freaky for me. That isn't me in the water. Just a quick one. I mean, the swimming history is there. Yeah, swimming 3 Olympics, 84, 88, 92. I won the middle one, lost the last one, which was, it's always good to lose your last one because then you quit because you know you're not good enough to carry on and they're better than you. So mentally, it's good enough to retire. I started Lane 4 26 years ago. Now, I'm a talent professional, which what's quite interesting. I have 2 jobs, or I've had 2 careers. So I was a swimmer. I then worked for British Swimming as the head of talent development. So that was my first job because I wanted a job. And my dad had a work ethic, and we, as a family, worked. My brother, bottom left, works for Coca-Cola. That's why the machine's there. He gave me a free Coca-Cola machine, for my new office, which was nice. He's my younger brother, but no free product, which means I've got to keep on buying it, which is quite cute, really. But we were always in business because my dad was in business, and so I wanted a job. So head of talent development for British Swimming, 3 years. Just easy segue into talent development per se. So going to talent development conferences like this to understand talent identification, talent pathways, understand how do you develop and retain talent. So I've been doing this longer than I was doing the swimming thing. So I can wear a suit every now and again, which is quite nice. So I can get dressed and I don't smell of chlorine. Got 4 kids, they're 16 down to 11, and they teach me everything I would need to know about leadership. I still commentate. So I'm an observer of what's going on as well, which is quite interesting. I've commentated on, so I swam in 3, I've commentated on 7 Olympics, so I've been to 10, which dates me. I mean, this is back to the age thing. I've done 10 Olympics, and they're 4 years apart, so work that out. And that's it, really. So Lane 4 was a business I started. So as a small business, 3 of us started it 25, 26 years ago. Effectively, we were trying to take psychology, performance psychology, into business. So it was individual, team, and organizational psychology into business. And we went into EY last July. So we've been partnering EY on a number of programs with the Met Police in London, a couple of big sort of signature programs, and really liked them, liked the culture. And Laura invited me over to come and talk because we have a leadership culture specialism. So I can talk till the cows come home about how I have tried to do it as a leader of 200 people, because that's what we became in the end. And the way the world has changed for us is quite dramatic, actually, not least the COVID thing, but then going in and sticking 2 letters before our name. That's a culture shift for quite a lot of my people, and not having met some EY people. Then also going into EY, Laura's colleague gave me 80 of the talent team in the UK and Ireland. So now EY Lane 4 includes the talent professionals and the DEI professionals of EY. So I've got about 260 people now. So I'm trying to lead. And instead of having 1 office, which is what Lane 4 had, I think we've got about 15 or 20 offices. And so my people can work anywhere. They used to work in Maidenhead, but now, I'm going to go work in Glasgow, I'm going to work in London, I'm going to work in Manchester. So actually, the spread and the split has been really interesting. So I've got this integration thing going on at the moment. So this story, I want to land some messages. I know I've got a short period of time. I'm near the end, but I've just got a couple of things I wanted to say to maybe underscore what's been said, but maybe a few different things as well. I think that's quite important. I think that's my final swimming pool slide. I come from a place, and I went to university in the States, where I think, as a talented individual, I wanted and I was put into, and I found my way to places where my talent thrived. I was in facilities, I had cultural norms, I had leadership behavior, I had reward systems, I had processes that enabled my talent. And what I learned early on, having gone to university in the States, was that it's about the conditions you put around talent. I think we all know this. You don't do stuff to people, you create conditions around them. So I think everything we're talking about here is, how are those conditions around our talented people and everybody's talent? How are we morphing and changing those conditions? So I think you've been hearing all day about how we need to reshape that for people. But I think there's quite a few things need to stay in place as well as static. So I just share that with you because that's kind of a big philosophy of mine. So when I look at performance environments, and we're all B2B now, by the way. EY Lane 4 is B2B. We don't do any work in sport. But it's a reference point for me, because I've been in some really good places and some really horrible places around the world where they've really released my talents, and I felt like I thrived. And don't we all want that? Don't we all want people that work for us to thrive when they come to work? Wherever coming to work is, yeah, showing up to do their thing. So we did a piece of research. So EY and Lane 4. So it was a big piece of research in last, and you've probably been faced with research all day, but so 75% of companies don't anticipate having a central office, 90% want flexible working, and 54% are considering leaving if they don't get it, if you don't keep it in place. And you'll have some version of that. I've got two particular models I want to share with you, and I apply these, and I apply them to my own organization. I am applying them back into EY now, into the bit I'm in, because I'm kind of ambitious, I'm still kind of punchy. You've got me, you're going to get me, and I'm going to tell you how I want it, as well as be told, because it is a big organization. And I consult on this. So I still consult in about 5 major PLCs. I was with one yesterday, the main board. And I think that this notion of that panel said everything to me, which is everything I stand for, everything I care about, everything I believe work should be about now. It should be about heart, and it should be about head. It should be about both. And so I think that what's interesting is the right-hand side. There's no reason it's in red, by the way. I just have 2 different colors. But the idea that there is an ambition, a goal, a set of targets known. We've always known that. We've always had them. And then strategies about how to do it, the what, the how, the purpose, and the values, why we exist and how we should exist. So I think that, and I worked with Sainsbury's a long time ago when Justin King took over. He got, for 200,000 people, a plan on a page, and it basically did these 4 things. And now a lot of organizations I'm working with now have got some version of this. So wherever the needle finishes, your organization has to perform, it has to have a certain set of goals and strategies, and it has to have a culture and a purpose. But the dial has gone so far up now on why do we exist, the purpose of the organization. You know this, everyone said it, right? So the big shift for me is about purpose, is a big purpose-led one. And you can't just say, and you will get found out. So I think in the last 4 or 5 years pre-COVID, people were talking about it, the triple bottom line, people, profit, planet, people, planet, profit, and actually building it in. But there's a lot of superficiality to that, and the veneer was very thin. No way will you get away with it now. People are making big moves. It's very painful, but investors will call them out on it. Within 3 or 5 years, you will not be able to survive without an embedded purpose, I don't believe. So what I was asked to talk about was the impact of proximity on purpose and belonging and culture. And there's a couple of bits that I just wanted to share, and they relate to everything I've just said. I think that the social connectedness is neurologically linked to the sense of meaning and belonging. So getting somebody to belong and feel like they belong to a company, everything has been said. I think you've heard it all today. The only thing I would add is that, as well as the bias, I think that managers need to understand the macro and the micro, and the macro being the events or the collected events that we do, or when we get people together, we have to be talking about the why, and we have to be telling stories, heartfelt stories that matter, not stories about the right-hand side, the goals, the strategies. You can do that online, you can do it in many different ways, but what needs to happen when you get people together at a macro level is you need to say, these are the stories that show you why this is a purpose-led organization. And there's a micro level, every single manager, everybody works for a manager, everybody works for a supervisor. If that person doesn't have the ability to talk to me, say it's me, about what do I stand for, why am I coming to work, what do I need from this job? Now I'm saying this, hybrid work, no hybrid world. Because you know what's quite interesting, I was flying over here today, and I realized that we're talking about this hybrid world and being in proximity to each other and going to an office. I do wonder how many people this is relevant for. I mean, you've stayed, so I guess it's important to you guys, but I went to an airport, they have to be there. The people have to be at the airport. I went to get a coffee, the people serving me coffee had to be there. They couldn't give me it through a computer screen. The pilot had to be on the plane to fly the plane. And I got some friends working pubs, and we got a big pub client. You have to be there to do your job. So proximity, it's the virtual way of working for some organizations you can't do it. There'll be nuances that you can do, and I wonder whether your organizations are office-based organizations, where you're looking and wrestling with this idea that we need to keep our culture, because you talked there about connectedness, social connectedness, culture. How do we keep that? Well, you need to tell stories. You need to tell heartfelt stories that connect people and make them want to belong to your organization. It's the old line of sight stuff. Why do I matter? And what are we doing? And why do you need me? And that's reinforcing that and telling stories of that is the most important thing. The link between the symbolic side of culture and the pragmatic side, I've put that in there because I think something's happening. If we go back to virtual, senior leaders are relying on one-way traffic. There's a lot more formal, stated, either objective or cascade of information, and that is quite dangerous because that starts to talk about the company you want to have, but it has to be balanced between the pragmatic because people need to experience what it actually feels like, because if you're not in a place, you can't be told what it's like, you still need to experience it. So I'm saying that because you need to create moments where people can feel the nuances of what it is like to be in this organization. So again, the question is, what are those touch points for people? What are you creating that people can go to? And I think everyone said it today. If you're going to be in a place, make it a social connection place rather than a strategy refresh place. Those are the places you need to make the link. Some of you will know this, and thank you to a guy called Chris Rogers, who I've worked with for many years. This idea that the way leaders communicate, there's a critical shift going on here. I think I just listened to the panel. I was half listening. I couldn't quite hear all the words, but so I've used this a lot, and I've grown a lot because I'm generally I have an introversion preference as a person. So I'm not good at getting out there too much. I mean, I'm doing this now because they asked me to, and I'm okay doing it. Right? I'm okay doing it, but I have an introversion preference. And when I saw this, when Chris started to talk to me, he said, look, leaders communicate in 4 different ways. There's the structured and the unstructured, formal and informal. If I go top left is structured formal. This is a structured formal communication. I could do this at an all hands for my people, 500 people. There'd be one-way traffic, and it could be emails, by the way, as well, or cascade the pack. So there is structured formal communication, and that is happening a lot more, and people are relying on that, sometimes too much. Structured informal, that's the making sense of, where you get groups of people together to make sense of things and have a conversation. I land some message. If we were to do that now, I'd get you to talk to each other in groups of 3 or 4. What would you just say? What do you think about it? What do you feel about it? That, I think, is, you can do that on Teams. You can do that on Zoom. Breakout, we all know how to do breakout rooms, right? So you can get one-way traffic and you can do breakout rooms to make sense of it. So I think that is covered in both places. Informal and structured, the coffee machine, the water cooler, the smoking area, walking to your bus, finding out, checking in, where do you get those moments? You have to work a lot harder. And if you've got a manager who's been promoted and has an introversion preference, who doesn't really want to ask people how they are, how they feel, because they don't know what to do with the answer, then you have to help them. And I think that people need help to develop that side. I did. When I saw this, I thought, you know what, I miss that. I don't do that because I don't want to go for a drink with people after work. But I did. I had to, because it was I kind of go, you know what, I'm going to pick up, I'm going to start to ask more questions and start to feel the feeling. And then the formal and structured, basically, that one is role modeling. So, and I think this is one of the biggest issues, is the gap between it's a say-do gap. You're going to hear lots of things at the top left. This is how it's going to be. We're really going to make an effort to keep flexible. But if you don't see me doing that, I could say from this stage, if you were in EY Lane 4, if you see me in the office, I'm going to go there for social. I'm going to do social connectedness. I'm not going to go and squirrel away in an office and just do meetings. And then the next week you see me for a whole day sitting in a meeting room on my Teams thing. There's a say-do gap, and you will not believe me. And there's a massive, there's a massive disconnect. So I share this so that I think conventional process and forums, you can work that. Be very careful, though, about the symbolic nature of what you're landing with people. Don't just rely on, these are our values, here's 5 words. Just get the pack, read that thing. Even come to the all hands. You've got to do the second one. That's easy. I think that's quite an easy one, that top right. I think a lot of people do that. You can do that anywhere. This is a big one. Where does this happen? So effectively, and then role modeling, people will see you do what you do. So I guess what I'm saying here is be really careful about the skill, the capability, and where this happens and how people can do it. because I think it's a fundamental issue and it's critical. I think leaders are communicating and need to communicate in a very different way with a heart-centered social approach. And that's a challenge for some people. I'm mixing my metaphors on here, and I did it on purpose because water and fire makes sense to me. Stories, stories, stories. If you want something, you have to be patient, tolerant, and you have to let people tell a story where it's working for the way you want to protect your culture and belonging, where it promotes belonging, where it promotes culture, where it promotes purpose. I think you have to give space, give time, be a storytelling organization. And this metaphor is, on the left, you've got a picture of a waterfall, on the right, a water wheel. Be very careful with a waterfall. You're just dropping things on people. You'll fracture your culture very quickly if that's all you do. Water wheel, where's the dialogue? Where's the conversation? Where's the story? How do you engage me? Let me help tell you why I care about this company. And I've put get around the campfire because ultimately that's what it is. I think we just need to be together. And that can be done hybrid. I did one last week where we had 10 people online and 20 in a room, and it was brilliant. And we had respectfully give time and space to people, listen to them, give them, and don't treat people differently just because they're not in a room. It goes back to the bias thing. But you've got to face into that. Okay, I think that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. It's a short, sharp, here's a few thoughts of what my life.